Welcome back. We are here for another episode of Come Together, the normal series where we go a little bit deeper on some of the topics that may be emerging in the world, in pop culture, in politics, maybe even in my session room, maybe even in the thoughts that we're just having. Yeah, or yours.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about how to actually talk about sex. And so we're going to say the word talk a lot, but hopefully not that much.
Because we do a lot of talking about sex.
We talk about sex a lot.
But very foundational is how exactly you can and do talk about sex.
Yeah, because it is a foundation, and I think, is this a big call? I think absolutely every person struggles with it or will struggle with it at some point. Is that a huge call?
I don't think that's a huge call because it's one of those things where you aren't given the tools at all, I think, anywhere in life to talk about it unless you're actively seeking them out yourself.
Yes.
So that you might get a little bit of sex education here and there as you grow up and make your way through the world. But no one's like, hey, here's your guide to actually talking about sex, because there couldn't ever actually be a truly comprehensive guide.
Yeah.
But we're here to give you something.
Yes, we're going to try. Because I think another thing I hear, and I'm curious what you think about this, is a lot of people will say, I can talk about everything else. I can listen to what other people have to say. I can talk about anything with my partner or a stranger. But as soon as it comes to this topic, something happens and I struggle. So maybe we can also look at why is that? Why do we struggle?
Why does it feel easier sometimes to have sex rather than talk about it?
Yes. Fascinating stuff.
So this affects everyone from single people to people in long-term relationships, even your platonic relationships. I actually find, now this might be a bit personal, I have a much easier time talking about sex in my platonic relationships than I do in my intimate ones, which is very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think it's because maybe the risks are removed a little bit, that it feels more risky talking about these things with your partner because it's often involving them, and it might be it's something that you're wanting more of or less of, or even approaching a concept or an idea or a type of sex that you haven't had before, and so you're not really sure about it. It affects them, it affects you. You don't want to make them feel bad, but you also want to make sure you're getting what you want. It is very complex, and I think women often do this better than men, or I think if we're looking specifically at straight people, I think gay men and queers do it incredibly well, but everyone can learn. But yeah, it's this sort of information gathering and sharing when you're talking with your friends, rather than maybe what can be considered as problem solving when you're talking about it with your partner.
Problem solving, yeah. It's also, you see a lot in pop culture, this idea that, good sex is kind of instinctive and wordless, and it just happens magically, which is not the case. So talking about it can feel like there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Where do you think this kind of inherent silence came from when it comes to talking about sex?
Yeah, so I think you raised a really good point already, the images that we see of sex so often in, film, movies, pop culture, the things we've watched growing up. No one's talking about it. And I think there's a reason for it. It's entertainment, and often what they're trying to do is get a really good, hot, sexy sex scene and distill it into a few minutes. And so talking and language goes completely. None of us were taught how to talk about sex growing up, and so we learnt things like no means no. But other than that, we weren't taught about how to discuss pleasure or how to check in, or how even talking can be a part of foreplay, because a lot of our education was very anti-talking about the pleasure stuff. It's how to prevent bad things from happening. And so that's why all the focus was on contraception and, if you're lucky, consent. But some young people didn't even get that. And then I think it can often be sort of socialised in the ways that we're having sex. So if you haven't had experience with a partner or person who has brought up the conversation, then it can just feel like it's the norm. If I haven't had experiences where talking is normal, then being quiet just feels easier. There is an assumption, as you said, that it should be natural, or we should just get it, or I shouldn't have to be directive.
Well, if you're truly compatible, you shouldn't need to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like, is actually wild. Like it is, it's wild. Like they should know my needs, but how are they to know your needs if maybe you don't even know your needs? And how is anyone to know anything if you're not sharing it? There's also this idea that it kills the mood, that it disrupts what's going on. And for some people, I think it can be the case if their communication is just about like stopping it and changing it up, then yeah, that can feel disruptive, but it also doesn't have to be. But mostly I think it's just like a new language. Like I studied Spanish in university and that was clunky as fuck, figuring that out, and it was awkward, but with a bit of practice and going to Spanish speaking countries, like you learn.
That's such a good point. Yeah, they said the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it.
Yes.
100% that applies. I didn't even think about that.
And what has happened, I haven't been speaking Spanish and I feel like I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
And so it is a skill that you keep up, and the more you do it, yeah, it feels normal, and then it also feels like exciting, and it feels connecting when you can actually sort of learn and speak this language as well.
When it comes to, say, starting the conversations, what kind of context would be ideal?
Yeah, I think often these conversations are best done outside of sex first, because you kind of set the tone. And it's really interesting hearing some people say that even from like the first date or the first few dates, they're talking about these things. That's not going to be for everyone, because you may not want to have sex with a person that you go on a first date with, but kind of normalizing it from the start feels important. But then, of course, there are a bunch of people who may be in long-term relationships and they're like, wow, we've never actually spoken about sex. Don't worry, you don't need to go and date someone new. You can always learn, but perhaps what you need to do is really create the context for it. And starting outside of a sexual context can support that. That's why I think a lot of people go to see a sex therapist, because it is kind of setting the scene and the tone where they're like invited to or encouraged to have these conversations. What I often do is we'll share a bunch of questions, and we also have a card game that we developed at Normal, where you don't have to be the one to think of the question. You could just like get this card game out and start, pull a card once a day or sit down for half an hour and go through them together. So you're practicing. I think that often, what we want to do is get to a place where you're speaking during sex. But if you're going to raise something that might be quite vulnerable for you or your partner, often that's best done outside of a sexual context rather than directly before, during, or directly after sex, because it might feel a bit vulnerable. That's not to say it can't be really great, but just be aware of the vulnerability for both of you. And then once you've started practicing that, and you might be doing this over a few weeks, like really practicing talking about sex, of course you're wanting to implement it during sex as well. And so that might be things like, I love it when you touch me like this, or can you hold me here, or I want this, or this would make it even better, or I notice you haven't been saying anything, can you let me know what you want, does this feel good, would you like to try this? Like these kinds of questions are slightly, I think, more supportive than what do you want? Because what do you want is a great question, but it could be so many things, and the more specific you get, the easier it is.
Say you are faced with the question, what do you want? What are the best ways, whether it's in that moment specifically or taking time away and going and really thinking about it, to find what it is that you want?
Yeah, such a great question. I think often I like to answer this with what gets in the way between us asking for what we want, and that might be a useful thing for all of us to think about. Is it that I don't know what I want? Is it that what if I ask for what I want and I get it but it's not quite right? Or will they be okay with this? Is it like weird or creepy that I want this? What happens if I get what I want and I really like it? What does that mean? Am I deserving of it? So there's a lot of things that can get in the way of us asking for what we want. And so maybe all of those things resonate with you, maybe none of them. But what is currently getting in the way between you asking for what you want? And that might also be, I've asked for what I want in the past and I've said it and someone's told me off or said I shouldn't want that, or it's wrong, or it's weird. So there can be, shame involved here as well. Then I think what we need to do is take a moment to figure it out. And so that could be like a solo inquiry through masturbation and through, learning about yourself, but it doesn't have to be a solo thing. When someone asks you what you want, more often than not, we need to take a moment. We need to be like, what do I want? But there's this expectation that we're just going to be so quick and give them something straight away. But if we're answering straight away, that's often from habit or performance or script rather than what do I really want in this moment. So we actually have to normalize the pause, the moment, feeling into it, what could it be? And then sharing. And maybe we also need to lower the stakes a little bit. It doesn't need to be, the thing you request doesn't need to be the most orgasmic, intense, full body thing. It could be a thing that gives you an idea, and then maybe you want something else, and then maybe you want something else. So yeah, lowering the stakes a bit and normalizing the fact that you might ask for many things in one sexual experience. How are you talking about, and even what's going online at the moment with these discussions of talking about sex?
I think I have a really unique perspective because I engage in a lot of the writing of the education we do, synthesizing those thoughts and ideas to be really easy to consume for people online. But it exists as any work does, in a separate part of my brain.
Yeah.
So when it comes to talking with my friends or even talking with my partner, it's I don't have access to all that other stuff, which is really intriguing and something I'm learning about right now. Most conversations I see to do with sex online outside of the space that we fill have nothing to do with asking for what you want, and more so here's 5 tips to blow their mind. Yeah. What about blowing your own mind?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's such a good point too, because we can cerebrally know all of these things, and that sort of difference between me and my work self and my values, or my politics and what I think is really important. And I think that this can be quite confronting for people as well, because they're like, I'm a staunch feminist, or I'm a sex positive person, I really believe in it, and I know these things, and I've read all of the books, so why do I still struggle? Because you're still a human. And, even sex therapists, even sex experts and people who have, years of qualifications in supporting other people still struggle too. And we need to, normalise that part.
When would you say is the worst time to start this conversation?
When you're dysregulated, if you're feeling really unsafe, or if you're in the middle of a conflict, talking about sex can feel, really overwhelming. It's the worst time when what we call kitchen sinking, where you just throw everything in and, you never do this, and I'm always the one to initiate, and you never ask me about what I want, and last Tuesday, the kitchen sinking, if you're noticing that happening, often we need to pause, take a beat, and find perhaps another time where you can access more empathy, or you're feeling more regulated. I think if either one of you is feeling really uncomfortable, and not uncomfortable because, uncomfortable may happen, but really uncomfortable. So maybe there's other people around, or if you're living at home and there's family members, or your roomies are nearby, or you're out in public, if someone is deeply uncomfortable, sort of going towards this doesn't feel safe, then you really should pause that. Yeah, what do you think?
Asking a question like that in the moment can really just yank you out of the whole experience.
Good
and
point.
take you out of your body and into your head. What do I want? Am I not doing enough right now? Should I be doing something else? Do I need something else?
Yeah, and then that is sort of bringing me back to, maybe it's like the questions need to be way more specific then, because that is such a big picture.
Like an either or.
Yeah.
Would you like me to do
Yes.
this or this?
Yeah, and also we can model it. Like, if you're noticing your partner is struggling to speak about sex, you can model and normalize talking about sex. And if you're the one who is saying, I like this, or I want this, or I would like to, it does kind of make it feel more acceptable in the relationship and accessible. And it creates like this shared language rather than just one person needing to give all of the information.
We could never distill all of this into 3 concrete phrases, but I'm going to ask you to do it anyway.
Okay.
If you could give like 3 bits of language that people can implement when it comes to talking about what they want when it comes to sex, what would your top 3 be?
Oh, okay. The first, wow, I'm probably going to come up with so many other better things later. But I think that the first one would be something along the lines of what would make this even better, or what would make this feel better. Because in saying that, you're not saying you need to change it necessarily, or you need to do something different. Like, how could we add to it? It's also for those who say, well, this is fine, this is good, I like this. Great, like, but what would make it even better? And so that's encouraging people to really think about, yeah, you can want more, you're allowed to want. What's another one? I think another one is maybe some reassurance around, like, I really like doing this, or I really want to give you a good time, or I don't mind that we're going slow. I like that we're slowing it down. We don't need to race through it. Those kinds of things, because that often allows, even if logically we know, I know my partner has told me all the times that they like giving me pleasure, really hearing that reassurance is important. And so that is the giver then communicating rather than the receiver. So say, for example, if someone's going down on someone else and they struggle to receive and they get in their head, receiving that reassurance of, you don't need to worry about me, like I'll tell you if I need to pause, can be a lot to help them ease and relax into it. And then the other, maybe this final piece is like more of a reflection piece, like an aftercare piece, which is sharing what you really liked, sharing what felt good. So often we can talk about this in like the ways in which things are lacking, but saying, I really liked it when you did this, or it felt even better when you did that. When you said that, it made me feel X. Like, that kind of language is really supportive, because it's not criticizing, it's not telling someone that they're doing anything wrong or bad, but it's also advocating for yourself.
And then finally, I guess the next sort of question to discuss is, what do you do when the conversation doesn't go the way you intended and maybe there is a negative reaction involved?
Firstly, that's okay. Like, it's actually okay if you've tried to talk about sex and it's been hard. Like, I do this for a job, and I have had many, and I'm sure there will be many moments in my life beyond where it's not going to go how we plan it to or how we want it to, and so that's fine. Name it. That didn't go the way I wanted it to. I'm noticing that maybe we were reactive, or that I was responding from a vulnerable place. But I do still want to talk about it. Just because that was hard and maybe it ended in conflict, or because we didn't necessarily feel closer, but maybe we feel more distant, it doesn't mean we have to stop. It is a sign that maybe this is a new skill that we've got to learn. And so normalize. It's probably, you're definitely, absolutely, I'm just going to say, you're absolutely going to have some hard conversations about sex in your life. Like, there are going to be times where you or others are unfulfilled, or it's hard to talk about, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you need to shy away from it.
If you want to have good sex, you have to open yourself up to the hard conversations.
Totally. You do.
Yeah.
You do. And it's because it's vulnerable. And notice in you when you go into a protective mode. And what does that feel like when a partner shares something with you that they're wanting more of or less of, or something that's going on for them in their sex life? Can you be curious about it? What is that like for you? Oh, what are they trying to communicate? Maybe they didn't do that in the best way. That's okay. Like, they're trying. Can I still stay curious with what they're trying to say? And vice versa. Hopefully they're doing that for you as well.
I think we've touched on this just before, but one of the hardest parts is knowing what to say and the right questions to ask. And we'll never ever stop praising the sync set that you designed, which is more than 50 conversation cards to help you have discussions about desire, sex, pleasure, and relationships. It is probably one of the best and simplest resources we have to really help you understand yourself, your partner, or anyone more. Incredible work, Georgia.
Thank you.
But for today's Come Together, we do have another discount code for the first 50 people to use it. The code is Talk About It for 30% off, excluding gift cards and bundles. And if this has really sparked thoughts or the intention to have a conversation with someone in your life, or even just understand more about yourself, the Sync Set is the perfect place to start. You can use it as journal prompts, you can use it for conversations, you can do a card a day.
Totally.
There are a million different ways you can use it. And it's just such a helpful thing to get you there.
Yeah, because the best conversations about sex, I think, start with really good questions. And so we've done the work for you.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, just keep talking.
Keep talking. And that's been Come Together, and we will be back again next week to talk about more sex, pleasure, and all things happening in the world.